The girl dressed up and put on makeup for her wedding. She thought that every day from now on would be happy. She had moved past her painful past and was starting a new life with her lover. The wedding was supposed to be a joyous occasion. The maids led the bride, who had her head covered with a veil, to the ceremony location. When the people saw her, they whispered and asked each other if she was the girl whose house had been destroyed by an attack a few years ago. Reports said that her father died in a terrible manner, and that she was the only one who got away from the house. But after that, she isolated herself from others. Someone called it revolting and didn't comprehend how the family of the groom would welcome her as a new member. Some guests mentioned rumors about the girl being frail and possibly dying tomorrow if not today. However, presently she looked fine. One person speculated that she may appear healthy because she sacrificed her father on her own, and possibly she hasn't lost her memory as she previously stated. The girl overheard the conversation and couldn't overlook the gossip. She looked terrified, but her fiancé immediately called her over. He advised the girl to ignore the jealous individuals and proposed that she should live happily ever after despite it all. While seated at the table across from each other, the attendants lifted the veil of the bride. Suddenly, there were shouts and the gates of the estate swung open like they were hit by a shockwave. An attractive young man with ash-colored hair emerged from the gate, and people immediately identified him as a fox. He also recognized the young man. He was the same one who destroyed her home a few years prior. The man walked toward the girl and spoke. He found it interesting that her fiancé had touched something he deemed untouchable, yet still planned to marry her. Meanwhile, the groom stood up and commanded the guards to protect Yehawa. He urged her to come to her senses and flee, but before he could finish his sentence, a fox attacked him from behind. Li Jung fell lifeless onto the frigid floor. Yehua rushed to the young man, shook him, and begged him to wake up, but he didn't respond. Suddenly, the fox came from behind and pulled her elbow, dragging her towards him. Yehua struggled to break free and shouted at the monster to release her, but her efforts were in vain. The fox cast a spell that caused the girl to slowly lose consciousness. Yehua believed she would be happy forever, with her partner starting a new life. Her wedding day, which was supposed to bring happiness, the first baby cries she was supposed to hear, and the first hugs she was supposed to feel. All of this belonged to her husband, and not to the beast who had hurt her family. Inside one of the rooms of the lavish mansion, on red silk sheets, the fox was punishing the girl who had once run away from him in a depraved way. She begged him to stop and told him she didn't want him to continue. But the young man ignored her. Yehawa asked why he hated the girl so much and what she had done to offend him. He replied that it was pointless to ask him, because the shamelessness was coming from the girl's home. Later, he mentioned that the girl tried to run away again that day. Although catching her had become routine for Fox, this time the girl managed to run quite far. The fox said that the girl is very strong because she keeps resisting him, but no matter how much she runs away, he can still catch her. He said she can't escape without his permission, and she should know that by now. However, the girl still tries to escape, and the fox asked if she enjoys being punished. The girl said that was ridiculous and asked the young man to leave. He said he was willing to go there, but only if Yehawa went with him. Fox warned her that if she tried again, he would break her ankle so she couldn't run away. Later that night, Yehawa tried to escape again. He said she needed to behave if she wanted to stay healthy. As Yehawa ran away, she thought about how she didn't care what happened to her. Right now, the most important thing is to ensure Li Jun is okay. A maid approached Fox, who was watching the girl escape, and informed him that Yehawa had run away again. She questioned why he didn't lock Yehawa up to avoid having to catch her repeatedly. Fox replied that such action was unnecessary, and that he would help Yehawa reach hell since that was what she desired. By morning, the girl was at the manor, where she lived with her husband's family before, but her mother-in-law refused to let her in. The woman yelled at the girl, calling her shameless, and asked her how she dared to come back. Yewa was commanded to leave, but she was determined to stay to see her husband. The girl said she would accept any penalty. The woman became more furious and slapped her sister-in-law, stating that neither her mother nor her husband were present in the house. She had always opposed their marriage. Through tears, she expressed that her son had never married or been involved with someone like Yehowa. She pleaded that her son not be hurt again. The realization hit the girl hard. Li Jung had passed away. The girl got kicked out of the manor's courtyard and warned not to return. She accepted it and walked down the street. People kept staring and asking if she was the girl recently abducted by Fox, wondering how she returned and why she looked like that. But Yehawa didn't care about their looks or whispers. She walked slowly toward the place where her home used to be, lost in thoughts of her husband. She remembered the times when he held her hand and admitted that he knew the other girl didn't share his feelings, but he would be content if Yehua would accept his advances. He vowed to be her true family and make sure she was never alone. These memories made her cry. Lee Jung was the reason she kept going. He was her friend who helped her when she became an orphan, her only support. When she arrived at the old rundown estate, the girl saw terrible graffiti on the doors and walls of her former home. Lai suddenly appeared behind her with a few of his servants, asking with a grin if she liked the hell he had created for her. He also wondered if she regretted ignoring his warning, as he had shown he wasn't bluffing. The girl recalled Fox's words from the previous night. He warned her that if she attempted to escape once more, he would break her ankles. Yehua noticed a sickle with a long handle nearby and retrieved it, her head bowed. The fox admired the girl's courage as she threatened him with it. However, the girl had a different motive. She didn't want to live anymore, so she used a sickle to cut her throat without hesitation. Even at that moment, she resented Lies for putting her in this horrible situation without explanation. Her final thought was to go back in time and never get involved with that fox again. Just when she thought everything was over, she felt intense pain in her neck and heard someone calling her name. This voice sounded familiar to Iyawa. When she opened her eyes, she saw her dad in front of her. He gave her a tight hug when he noticed she was awake. Yehua was surprised that her father was suddenly alive. Her dad hugged little Yehua, who was still in shock that he was alive. She felt like it was a dream, and when she looked down at her small hands and up at her dad's broad chest, she couldn't understand why she couldn't hug him completely. Yehua saw herself in a mirror and was surprised to see that she looked younger. She couldn't comprehend what was going on and thought maybe someone had bewitched her. But instead, the girl joyfully threw her arms around her dad's neck and hugged him tightly. Her dad then pulled her away and asked if she was all right, and if she felt any pain. He reassured her that she could tell him anything that was wrong, and that he would fix it right away. But instead, the girl joyfully threw her arms around her dad's neck and hugged him tightly. She was thrilled to see him alive, and even if it was just a dream, she promised not to wake up again. Suddenly, someone outside the door said they had medicine for the little girl. The manor's master told the person to bark, but the girl became terrified when she saw it was the fox. The fox was happy the girl was awake, but she was afraid and yelled for him to stay back. Yehua's father and the fox were amazed at the girl's behavior. The man asked why she was treating her brother poorly, when he had done nothing to harm her. The girl was confused and inquired about the man's relation to her. She believed she was her father's only daughter. However, he explained that Shaiho, the fox, was the brother the girl herself welcomed into their home. Now she acts as if she doesn't remember it. The girl wanted to ask a question, but was interrupted when she was overcome by memories. Yehua remembered being carried on a maid's back at a marketplace. She noticed someone in the crowd had stolen something and notified her nanny. Her nanny said they would go to the government on the way back to report the theft. As Yehua and her nanny walked home, they saw a group of men accusing a young man of stealing their grain. Yehua spoke up for the young man, saying he didn't steal anything. She then told him to come home with them since it was very cold outside and he wasn't dressed properly. The girl couldn't believe it. She thought she didn't actually invite Fox into her house. She yelled to her father to watch out for Fox since he might hurt him. Yehua started chasing Shiho away and even threw the bowl of medicine he had brought. The man questioned why the girl acted that way and then turned to Shiho to ask if everything was okay. The fox wanted to say sorry to the lady and hold her hand, but she pushed it away. The man said that the girl had been ill for a long time and experiencing nightmares. He decided to leave until she felt better. Yehua yelled at Shiho to leave and never come near them again. The next time, Shiho brought the medicine back to the girl. She tipped the contents on him again and asked him if he thought Yehua was joking when she told him to keep Fox away from her. She asked what he was up to, since he stayed to live with humans. She called him a monster and ordered him to leave. Shiho didn't care what she thought or what she called him, but he insisted she take her medicine for her own good. The girl said she didn't know what was in the potion and wouldn't take anything touched by Shiho. Then, She got sick and passed out. While unconscious, she saw some of the things that had happened to her before she slit her throat. Ye-hwan only woke up at night. Her dad was next to her. When she woke up, he sighed out of relief and said he was scared when she passed out again. But now he was happy she woke up. The dad told his daughter not to skip the meds because Shiho had made them carefully for her, and they helped her have more energy. The daughter sat up and said her dad hated her for giving her the fox's meds. The man was confused about why his daughter had become hostile toward her brother, despite him caring for her and worrying about her constantly. She had recently experienced a nightmare, but it was unclear why this caused her to act this way. Although Shai had taken care of her day and night, and even lost consciousness, and Yihawe had been following her brother constantly, the daughter claimed that he was a fox and would harm their father. She convinced her father to remove him before anything bad happened. She pleaded with her father to trust her and escort the young man out the door. The man asked why Shai would kill him. The girl didn't know. The fox didn't explain anything, and she didn't remember her childhood. Yihua replied that she saw him kill her father and lost her memories. Her father asked when he would have to die, and the girl said it should be in 3 or 4 years. The man told her to wait until she reached that point, and then alert her father about her brother. He also advised her to calm down for now. The man promised to check on Shi, who later, when the time is right, and then left the girl's room. The girl sat on the patio, waiting for someone. The staff told her that Mr. Lee Jung had arrived, and Yihawe was overjoyed. She asked them to bring him to her right away. When the boy arrived, she rushed to hug him. He asked if she was really that happy to see him. Although they hadn't seen each other in a while, he didn't expect her to miss him so much. The boy said he had only seen Yue lying sick for 2 years, but now her face looked healthy. She who knocked on the door and offered snacks. At first, the girl wanted to chase Fox away, but then she remembered Lee Jung was there and let him in. The boy carefully placed snacks and green tea, for the lady and her guest bowed and left. The boy wanted to take an appetizer, but Yehua told him not to touch anything. Lee Jung asked why that was happening. At night, when Yihao was about to sleep, Shaiha knocked on her door and asked to come in, promising it wouldn't take long. The girl yelled for the guy to stay out and asked where all the helpers went, but the fox said there were none since he took care of things. Yihao was frightened by this and sat down on the far edge of the bed, but Ho went to the lady's room and knelt down in front of her and asked her to forgive him for being rude. He said that this was the last time he would allow himself to do such a thing, and henceforth he would not go near mistress again, so she should listen to him for the last time. He said that after the little mistress came to her senses, she constantly avoids her brother and speaks of terrible things that he dare not even utter. Shaya wanted to know why the girl trusted that vision so completely. Yao insisted it wasn't a dream, but instead a memory. She added that killing her father wasn't enough for him. He also mistreated and degraded her. Despite her attempts to explain, he couldn't comprehend it. Shaiho asked why he had to kill the Lord and torture her in person like that. The girl couldn't come up with an answer. The man said that she doesn't know what she's talking about, and if her dream is a real prediction, she should say something that will happen soon to prove she's right. If so, he'll leave and never return. Ye, who lost all her memories of the past due to shock after her father's murder. When Shaiho heard this, she cried and said she had saved him a few years ago. He was shivering from the cold and dying of hunger, but she held out her little hand to rescue him. Since then, he had made a promise to take care of her and was willing to sacrifice his life if necessary. She had saved him and understood his heartfelt gratitude, so why would she now blindly believe a dream suggesting that he was capable of such horrific deeds? He said he could tolerate her taking out her anger on him, because it would show she was gaining energy. He begged the young mistress not to falsely accuse him or refuse the medicine, as he believed the boy was not trying to harm her. He also expressed hope that the girl could escape from her troubles. Yaohai didn't comprehend why he was crying and acting wounded now, as she was the one who had been hurt because of him. She began to feel that everything that happened as an adult was just a bad dream, and now she was blaming the wrong person. The emotional shock made her lose consciousness again. When she woke up, she realized that Fok was punishing her in his perverted way. With a chuckle, the young man said that it was a good effort to break free from him, but the girl seemed to have forgotten that she couldn't be free until he allowed her to be. Yeah, Hua didn't understand how come she was left with this monster. After finishing his punishment, Fox left the room and told the maid that Hua had regained consciousness, but there was a wound on her neck because she had resisted. He said that by the time he came back, the girl should have calmed down by now. The maid asked if the Lord was going on a reconnaissance mission. He said he was still being hunted. While he was carrying Hua to the manor, everyone was looking at him so strangely and should definitely take care of it. The servant girl asked when the Lord planned to return, to which he replied that it would depend on what the opponents do, but he planned to return in a few days. During that time, the servants would need to make sure nothing happened to Yahua. In the evening, the servants tried to force Yahua to drink the medicine. They held the girl by her arms and legs, preventing her from moving, and forcefully poured the medicine into her mouth. The girl tried to resist in every way possible, and spat out the medicine. The oldest maid asked why the girl was doing that. After all, they only wanted to help her get better, so there was no need for this pointless resistance if she didn't want to continue to enjoy the pain. Yehua said that she never asked them to save her, so why are they now deciding if she wants to live or not? She asked the servant woman to kill her now. The woman then told the other servants to hold the mistress even tighter, because the master had ordered before he left that she should be well by the time he returned. As Yehua was given a new dose of medicine, she closed her eyes and thought that it would be great if this was all just a nightmare and her childhood memories were real. Yehua woke up to someone calling her. When she opened her eyes, he saw Shiho in front of her, saying that it was all his fault and apologizing for what happened. The girl realized that she was now in the past. The girl thought how could she be mad at her brother now if he was crying like that? In her mind, Yehua asked the guy not to cry and to take care of forever. Shiho, kneeling beside the little lady's bed, asked her to wake up, but the girl thought that if she opened her eyes, she would end up in hell, where Shiho would no longer be so caring and it would be better for her to stay here. Shiho said that he would definitely save the lady, and took out a knife from the inner pocket of his clothes and put it to her hand. The girl didn't understand what Shiho wanted to do, but she didn't let him do it and took hold of the knife blade with her hand. In one of the kitchens of the manor, the servants were busy preparing a decoction for Yehua. The most senior servant asked the others if the decoction that the lady was taking was okay, and the people in charge said that it would be ready in an hour. The headmaid said that they had trouble getting the girl drunk once, so they needed to put more healing herbs in the potion, and it would be good if the mistress would stop complaining. The older maid was approached by a young girl, and said that even though it was for the sake of healing, but if they continued to push the mistress like this, she would only resist more. Yehua was here without even knowing the reason, and perhaps if she knew why she was here, she would be more at ease. The old maid said, "It's all nonsense. All people have one thing in common, their selfishness. If they tell the truth to Yue, she can use it as a weakness." She asked if the little girl hadn't learned in her life that people's atrocities are always repeated since she says such nonsense. The woman advised the young maid not to believe people or sympathize with them, or they would not hesitate to scorch her with treachery. The girl still felt sorry for the mistress. And then she asked the old maid for Yehua to be entrusted to her. When the mistress woke up, she felt someone touching her hand. She decided to see who it was and saw the same girl in front of her, and asked who she was. The girl said her name was Erin, and now she was the one who would take care of mistress's health. She wasn't very skilled at taking care of people, but she promised to do her best to help. The girl asked Madame to focus on her recovery from now on, but Yehua only turned her head away from her. Erin then said that the mistress had not been treated in a very friendly manner previously, and she was sorry for that. They were told that it was necessary to save her, but now the girl would try to be gentler with her since she had sincerely asked to let the older maid take care of her. The girl said she wouldn't harm the mistress and asked to trust her. Yehua said how such a thing could happen. Wasn't it enough for them to kill her father? But Lys also killed her husband right on her wedding day, plus he didn't hesitate to rape and disgrace her, so what trust can we talk about? She asked if they wanted to drive the girl crazy, but even so she could never trust them. Hearing those words, the girl was scared, and then Yehua thought that she was very harsh with her because the child was not guilty of anything. Erin then said that she understood Madame's feelings. Anyone who had experienced such cruelty would not be able to go on living as if nothing was wrong. Erin was also in this place unwillingly, so she can partially understand Madame's feelings. She said that she only wanted Yehua to not suffer anymore while being here. The girl is surprised and asked why the girl is so kind to her, even though she sees her for the first time, and said that they are in a similar situation. Aaron said that she was not someone who was welcome in this place. She told her mistress that the foxes are divided into black and white. The two clans have been fighting over territory since ancient times, and the whites used to submit to the blacks when they were victorious. But that all changed when a powerful white fox came and changed things. The first thing he did was to destroy the black foxes' village, where Aaron lived, to increase their power, because they lived on the very border. The girl was orphaned as a result of the attack, and then the fox decided to take her in. Aaron said that she was from the Black Fox clan, so she understood Yi Hao's feelings about being in a strange manner among strangers. She said that the other servants were careless with the mistress, but she won't be like that. Only the girl will need to trust Aaron a little. Yi Hao thought this was some kind of abnormal world. To bring her here, Lys had brutally killed people. To increase his powers, he destroyed tribesmen. He brought the child to a foreign land, told her to forget everything, and started ordering her around. The girl couldn't fully believe Aaron's words, but the girl was not going to take any pity from this pitiful story. The mistress told the girl to bring the medicine. After all, that was her job right now. Anyway, if Yi Hao would continue to refuse to drink it, they would force the potions into her, so it would be easier to calm down and agree to drink it so as not to cause any trouble. The girl rejoiced and hugged her mistress, thanking her for her trust. Aaron returned to the kitchen with an empty cup in hand. She was surrounded by surprised servants. Soon she began bringing mistress all sorts of snacks, helping her out of bed and going out to the balcony with her. Seeing the smile on mistress's face, the old servant was surprised that mistress could have such an expression on her face. When Aaron brushed Madam's hair one evening and said that everyone was happy that she had started taking her medicine, the girl promised that if Yi Hao got better, they could go out into the garden and see the neighborhood. Kneeling down in front of Madame, the girl asked for her hand to apply oil, but when she saw the scar, she said it was a shame to see such a horror on such a beautiful hand. Yi Hao looked at her hand and thought, when did that scar have time to appear? Though it doesn't matter anymore, she has no one to show it to anyway. She asked Aaron where her master was, since she hadn't seen him in the manor for a long time. The girl replied that he must have left to break up the Black Fox clan. The girl said that the Black Foxes feared the master of the White Foxes, so they often made attacks on the grounds. This time, the master himself decided to lead the campaign. Yi Hao thought it was a great chance to get away from him, since he was currently busy camping. Aaron and Yi Hao went out for a walk in the garden. Because the girl was so obedient, the tight control was weakened, so until Fox came back, Yi Hao had to think of a way to escape, or else the nightmare would happen again. From such thoughts, the girl squeezed the rose in her hand hard, and because of that, she hurt herself on the thorns. Aaron saw this and immediately ran to get something to help stop the blood. As soon as the girl was out of sight, Yi Hao immediately ran to the passage in the wall. She could fit through that passage. She just needed to find out where it led. Through the passage, she saw an old door. It was in a remote place and was obviously practically unguarded. The girl decided to scout around, but suddenly she was grabbed by Aaron's arm. She looked at mistress resentfully and asked if she had decided to deceive her and run away. Aaron then told Madame that this wasn't an abandoned passageway at all. If Yi Hao approached it, a trap would be triggered immediately. As soon as the girl passes through the door, everyone would immediately know that she had decided to escape. This has happened before. The girl took mistress's hand and began to treat the wound. She said she understood mistress' reluctance to stay in this place, and she would do the same if she were in her place. Aaron said that she knows a way out, but if Yi Hao decided to escape, it can't be done now. When the Lord isn't there, the manor is well guarded. Although the girl doesn't notice it, but the servants are watching her every move. However, when the Lord returns, there will be an opportunity to escape, because the one who is trusted by everyone here will be back. Yi Hao was surprised and asked why Aaron was telling her all this and how she knew about the trap. The girl said that she didn't want to stay in this place either, but hadn't gotten up the courage to try to escape yet. Madame asked if Aaron had a place she could go back to after escaping, and the girl shook her head negatively. Yao then suggested that she run away together. In the evening, the mistress calmly drank the medicine. The old maid brought her. The woman said she didn't understand why Yehua suddenly changed her attitude towards them, but it was the right decision anyway. She said that the servants didn't want to hurt her on purpose then. They just wanted the master to hear that she had recovered upon her return and not get too angry. During the night, Fox came back. He was covered in blood, but the old maid who met him at the gate was not the least bit embarrassed. She greeted the lord and asked how it had gone. The fox said they had retaken the territories, but he was uneasy that it had been so quick and easy. He suspected that the black foxes were up to something. Fox asked what was wrong with his prisoner, and the woman said that she had refused to take the medicine after he left, but was now taking it calmly. There is a maid, she listens well, and thanks to her. The girl has opened up to the others. Fox asked if Yehua was in her room, and the maid said she was. Then she said that if the master wanted to go straight to her room, he should wash the traces of blood off his body, because it might scare the girl even more. Fox agreed and said he was going to wash his face and asked the maid to bring Yehua. The woman went into the lady's room and approached her bed and told her to wake up, for her master was asking for her. Hearing no reply, she pulled the blanket, but underneath she found only a bundle of netting. She immediately made a commotion and said that the mistress had disappeared. Meanwhile, Yeha and Aren ran through the darkness of the garden, always looking around to see if anyone was following them. To herself, the girl thought to herself that everything was happening just as Aren had said. The news of the Lord's return had weakened their defenses, and they had met no one along the way. This time she managed to escape right under the fox's nose. Suddenly it became very dark, and Yeha started calling out to Aren. The girl answered, but instead of a human form, the mistress saw a black fox. The girl was very scared when the foxes started to surround her, but suddenly they all stopped when they heard the voice of their leader. The girl walked up to Yue and said with a chuckle, she had a wonderful expression on her face right now. She stroked the fox girl's head and called her Yuing and said that she was doing a good job. The woman asked Yue if she was the favorite concubine that the white fox head had made such a fuss over. Although that wouldn't be surprising considering what kind of odor the girl had. The woman was near the girl in no time and said she wanted to taste her to see if she was fully ripe. However, turning around to the foxes standing behind the girl, she said that they were the first ones that could taste her, but only her arms and legs. After this permission, the foxes immediately pounced on the girl, but were immediately thrown back by the magic wave. Behind Yihei was the master of the white foxes. He said that when he came to the battle, the woman didn't even show her nose, and she appeared to have made a decoy out of his servant and was hiding right under his nose. The woman sarcastically replied that it was called a trap. Turning around to leave, she said that it was a pity her foxes didn't make it in time, or else they would have eaten Yaha in one bite. These words made the foxes very angry and he threw a spell at his opponent. The woman managed to defend herself and began to slowly disappear in the red flames. After such a shock, the girl fainted. In the morning, the old maid told the master that Yehua had stopped eating again. Apparently, the girl was very shocked that she had been betrayed by the one she trusted. The maid asked the master to forgive her because she thought that since the new maid didn't know anything, it would be easier for her to get along with the lady, but the woman had miscalculated. The fox decided to take the food to the girl himself. He placed a bowl of soup on the table and told her to stop her useless protests and start eating before he force-fed her. Seeing that the girl didn't even move, he exhaled and said, now, just like in the past, she was being stubborn, believing that he was making an attempt on her life. Hearing this, the girl was stunned. How could Fox say the same words he spoke in her dream? I said that the girl didn't seem to realize that her threats were no longer working. Fox flipped the girl onto her back with a sudden movement and loomed over her. He said that the girl had two choices. Either she would eat on her own, or she would lie under the fox, and he would transfer some of his energy to her. If the girl continued to resist, he would consider it as choosing the second option. The girl began to squirm and said that if the fox tried to touch her, she would bite off her tongue and die. Fox grinned and said that the girl had obviously forgotten who her body belonged to. Yehala then agreed to eat by herself. She took a plate in her hands and looking at the fox said they are disgusting. They don't hesitate to take and use others to fulfill their goals. So how then are they different from animals? These words made Fox angry, and walking up to the girl, he said that no matter how cruel they are, How can it compare to the language of humans? He said that the girl didn't need to feel sorry for herself. She didn't need to be sincere. All this happened because of her gullibility. Anyway, the girl's body could still be useful. So she just needed to fulfill her role in life. Saying that, Fox walked away from Yahao and headed towards the exit, and the girl thought, why is it a mistake to trust someone? After all, it's the fault of the one who deceived, not the one who was deceived. Yahui knocked the bowl over on the floor and bit her tongue as she told Fox. The shocked Fox immediately ran up to the girl and tried to unclamp her mouth to get her to breathe, but his attempts remained futile. The girl stubbornly didn't breathe and eventually lost consciousness. She woke up already in the past. She looked around her room, then looked in the mirror to make sure it was true. Suddenly she felt a sharp pain in her arm. Looking at it, she discovered the bandages on her palm. Not remembering where they came from, the girl unwrapped the bandages and saw the cuts. This wound was exactly like the scar she had discovered while she was with Orin. She tried to remember that she had gotten it back then when she was little. Such a prominent place had left a scar, and she hadn't even noticed it for so long. It certainly hadn't been there then, though. That scar hadn't been there when she'd gotten married, or when she'd first slit her throat. It definitely appeared after that dream. So all the moments that supposedly happened in her childhood are not a dream at all. It seems that when Yiha loses consciousness, she returns to her childhood, and everything that happens here leaves an imprint on her future. Suddenly, Shai-Ho bursts into the girl's room. He runs up to the little lady's bed, takes her hands, and says that he is very happy that she is awake. In that moment, the girl realized that she can change the future by changing the past. She can save her father and Li Jung and change the instigator of all the troubles. In the girl's room, her nanny was styling her hair, and the girl wondered how she could have gotten into the past. Could it be that Fox had used some kind of spell on her? Or was it a miracle that happened every time she wanted to free herself from him? The girl didn't understand that, but she knew one thing clearly: she couldn't trust Shiho. Even if he pretends to be harmless, he's still the one who ruined her life and destroyed her family. It's a great fortune that the girl knows this. Yoha's father enters Yahawa's room. He walks over to his daughter and puts his arm around her and tells her that he's very happy that she's okay. He was really scared when he heard that his daughter had passed out again. He apologized for not being there at that moment. Yaha looked at her father and hugged him tightly. She noticed that he had gotten very thin these few days. The girl apologized to her father for making him worry. Shiho appeared in the doorway. He said he had brought medicine. The master told him to come in. He also told his daughter to take the medicine soon and not to give it up because of the nightmare, because it was for her health. Yaha looked at the medicine and thought that it's not clear if it's a real medicine or a trick, but it's great at restoring her energy. Since she decided to change the past, she needs to stay in this place longer, and she'll have to take it. If she loses consciousness again, she'll go back to that monster. Though the girl's not sure about it, but if things are really as she thinks, there is no way she should miss this opportunity. She decides that she will drink this medicine, and through her persistence she will survive and change her fate. After drinking the medicine, the girl turned to her father and said that he must have been very worried because of those strange words she was saying. Apparently her mind was clouded by something. She apologized to her father for her behavior. She also apologized to Shiho because it was so hard for him while he was courting her and putting up with all the nagging. But really, she thought that Shiho shouldn't be so happy. When the girl thinks about what he did, she immediately wants to tear her to pieces. However, now is not the time to give in to emotions. You can't get angry right now and make Shiho hate her family. Yahweh said that it must have been really hard for Shihu while he was courting her. She thanked her brother for taking care of her even when she was mad at him. Suddenly, Yahweh's father was called by one of the maids and had to step out. When Yahweh was alone with Shiho, she suddenly became stern and cold. She said that she knew his true face. The girl decided for herself that she didn't want to let him lie and plot something. No matter what exactly Shiho is up to, she won't take it quietly. Yua said that she doesn't know why he's lying to her family, but she won't fall under those nets. However, he shouldn't worry because the girl isn't going to throw him out on the street. There must be reasons why Shiho is living among humans and hiding the fact that he is a fox. That's why the girl offered him a deal. She will guarantee his future well-being, and he will swear his loyalty to her. Even if something goes wrong, he won't be able to harm her family and the people in the neighborhood. Shai-ho was shocked at such a suggestion. The girl was pleased with the reaction and asked if Shai-ho had expected her to guess his identity. The boy hesitated a bit, but still said he would do as the girl said. The young man stood up, and after bowing, he left the girl's room. Satisfied with herself, I thought that Shai-ho was young now, so he was easy to control. She had found his weak spot, so she couldn't let him change his mind. Walking out of Madame's bedroom door, Shai-ho headed to the kitchen. He gathered a few pieces of raw meat into a pot and carried it somewhere. After entering one of the rooms of the lodge, he lifted the blanket and called out for someone to eat, but there was no one under the blanket. Hyewa was sleeping peacefully in her room when suddenly the door leading outside opened. The girl quickly woke up and saw a dark silhouette with burning golden eyes in front of her. She was about to be frightened when she saw a little fox in the silhouette who called her by name. He deftly did a somersault and landed right in front of the girl and handed her a bouquet of flowers. He said he was worried that she had fainted again, but now he could see that she was feeling better. He asked if something was hurting Mistress, but she didn't remember the boy. She asked who he was. The little fox, apparently not at all surprised, said he thought she had already remembered them, since he had been told that the girl was already fine. The little fox said it was fine. There was no need to rush and place the bouquet of flowers on the girl's lap. At that moment, Shai-ho literally bursts into the lady's room, picks up the fox cub in his arms and carries it away, and Hyewa is left in her room completely confused. Outside, Shai-ho and Seo-ho were talking. The fox cub apologized to his brother. He said he was hungry and was hiding in the kitchen. And there he heard the maid saying Ye-Harry remembered everything. So he thought he could meet the girl. He thought Hyewa would be just as happy as before. Shai-ho remembered the moment when they first met the little missus. It was at the market when the local vendors jumped on him thinking he had stolen something. That's when Hyewa stood up for them. She said that he wasn't a thief, and you can't accuse people of something without proof. Hyewa argued with the merchants and said that they couldn't accuse someone without evidence against them and demanded that Shai-ho be released. After seeing the little girl and what she was wearing, the merchants realized that she was from the nobility, but many couldn't understand why she was standing up for this boy. Some of the merchants said that if she is telling the truth, then why doesn't the boy want to show what he has behind his back? If he doesn't, he will be in trouble. So Hyewa went behind Shai, whose back, and saw a little fox cub there crying and pressing its ears to its head. The girl covered him with her cape and told him he could come out. She said that it seemed his brother had gotten caught protecting him, but it was all right now, and he could come out by taking her hand. Shai-ho was wary, for he didn't understand the girl's intentions. He was surprised that she saw all Esiolohho but didn't realize who they were, or did she just want to reveal them in front of everyone? He wanted to stop the little mistress, but she gently led the fox cub out from behind her brother's back and said it was just a child. When the healthy men surrounded them, he was just scared and hid behind his older brother's back. That's why he didn't want to come out. The girl said that you can't accuse someone just because of their appearance and told everyone to disperse. But one of the merchants replied that they couldn't drop the charges against them as they still hadn't caught the culprit. These two are outsiders, and it is very suspicious that they are roaming around. To release them, the brothers have to prove where and how they've been living all this time. Yehue says she's seen the thief's face and can tell what he looks like. She will protect the brothers. And if the merchants still have any questions after catching the thief, they can come to Minister Esio's house outside the village. The people knew who they were talking about right away. They recognized the girl as the minister's sick daughter, the one who had caused her father to give up his higher position. The merchants realized that if this conflict dragged on, there would be trouble later. Yehue gave Shai-ho's hand and told him to go with them. At the manor, Shai-ho explained to Sol how they should imitate humans, so the fox cub can't go outside whenever he wants. Now he needs to stay in this room for a few days. Shai-ho lied to everyone that his little brother was sick, but soon people would start thinking things. He said that the little fox needs to try to hide the presence of his tail and ears. To do that, he should gather all the power from his belly, and remember the magic his big brother taught him. He almost succeeded, but they were inadvertently distracted by Yi Hwa. Shiho and Seol-ho were horrified that the man recognized who they were. But the girl said it was okay, and there was no need for them to hide. She realized everything as soon as she saw them for the first time. Shiho was surprised by this, but the girl said that the first time they met, she saw Seol-ho's tail and ears and helped them. She knew that if the merchants saw it, there would be a riot. She wanted to hide their true face, so she pretended she didn't notice or guess anything. She said that Seol was trying so hard that the girl couldn't help but laugh because little Seol was so cute. And Seol being kept in the room is very similar to her situation. She too is told not to leave the room since she was sick. The girl told the servants that there's nothing interesting about looking at a sick child, so no one will come to that part of the manor. She told little Sol that they could go outside together so he could practice in peace. She realized that the little fox would be very homesick here, so she let him come to her room at night to play. She suggested that he become friends. Sol-ho gladly agreed, and after that he always came to the little mistress, played with her, and even let her touch his tail. She was happy watching his little brother. But one day when Sol-ho was already sleeping in his arms after playing, he asked if Yihao wasn't afraid of them. The girl didn't understand the older one's question. Then the guy said, "Doesn't the girl know that they are monsters?" Asked, "Isn't she afraid that they might hurt her someday?" Yihao asked why he thought that. Shiho was a little confused about the answer. Then the girl explained that it didn't matter what their essence was, because the day they met she wanted to clear Shiho of unfair accusations, and now she wanted them to live peacefully in her house and just be happy completely free of charge. She saw Shiho as her older brother and Sol-ho as her younger brother. She asked the elder fox if she could consider them as her brothers. Shiho smiled and said that of course she could think so. Shiho takes Seol-ho to his room after he came to see Madame without permission. The girl runs out after them and asks what the phrase "you don't recognize us" means. She didn't remember knowing their identity before. Shiho put his brother on the ground and told him to go back to the room, and he would talk to the mistress himself. The girl was surprised that Shiho had so openly revealed where she and her brother lived. She was now beginning to be convinced that she had known of their identity before. Remembering how the girl had tried to blackmail Shiho with this after she had just come to her senses, she felt ashamed of it because her older brother knew everything and kept quiet. Shiho said he didn't intend to deceive Madame or scare her even more. He said he knew that Madame would have a hard time believing him, but she only needed to know one thing: he will not hurt his little mistress now or in the future. He said that he doesn't force her to believe in Lai's words, but he only lives for Yi-Hwa's well-being. He asked the girl to live happily and leave all worries and doubts to him. The girl said that's enough and asked Shiho to stand up. She said that later he would break this promise he made on his knees. In the morning, Yi-Hwa was sitting in her room reading a book, but Seol-ho quickly barged in on her. He said that the flowers that the girl loved so much were already blooming, and he decided to bring her a bouquet to show them off. On the Amara, in the evening, Sol-ho came to the lady with a jar of fireflies in his hands, for she had once said she wanted to see them. In the afternoon, he ran to the girl's house to treat the snacks his older brother had prepared, and so it was repeated several times. One day, he ran into the girl's house and told her that there was no one in the house, even though it was daytime. Seol suggested she take a walk together and he would tell her about the flowers he grows himself. Yewa was surprised but agreed to go with him. As they walked, Seol showed her the different flowers. When he ran up to one of the flower beds, he said that the flowers growing there were forget-me-nots and lilies. It's rare to see these flowers to grow together because they have slightly different blooming seasons. The boy said he was glad to show the little mistress these flowers before they wilted. After that, he plucked and showed Yi-Hwa one flower. He said it was her favorite flower, so he planted even more of them so they could be seen from everywhere. Yi-Hwa seemed kind of upset. She said that Seol comes to see her every day, never losing faith that she'll remember them, even though the girl herself doesn't even react to anything. She asked why he was trying so hard. Shouldn't he be frustrated with his attempts by now? The boy said he wasn't frustrated. He is glad that he can see her every day. She has helped him and Shiho a lot in the past. If it wasn't for Yi-Hwa, everyone in the village would have found out their true identity, and even Shiho wouldn't have been able to save them. So Sol-ho decided that he would definitely repay her and help her remember everything faster and forget that nightmare. He said that he wanted little Miss to smile more and never be afraid of anything. As if remembering something else, Seo asked if the girl slept well at night. He said that Hawa used to be afraid to fall asleep alone, and she and her brother always came to her and talked. The girl also slept by hugging Seoho's tail, and said she liked it. Taking his tail in his hands, the boy drew it in front of him and offered it to the little mistress to touch it again. Yahweh said she wasn't a child anymore, but the boy just took her hand and placed it on his tail. The girl really liked it. The tail was so soft and fluffy. But she yanked her hand away with thoughts of how she could do such a thing. And she was obviously crazy since she liked it. After all this talk, she was completely relaxed. Or maybe it was the fact that foxes were good at bewitching people. She thought about asking the doctor about it later, when a maid called out to her and told her that Mr. Lee Jung was here. She asked if she could let the boy in. Yahao reacted quickly and turned around to tell Xiao how to hide, but he was already gone. A maid came up to the girl and asked again if she could invite Mr. Lee Jung. She replied that she would be waiting for him. When they met, they held hands. Lee Jung said he was glad that Yahao could already go outside since the weather was nice. Looking behind Lee Jung's back, the girl saw Shihu carrying Xiao Ho into their dwelling. Seeing the girl, Senior Fox bowed to her and quickly disappeared from sight, but there was something wrong on the girl's heart. Yehao and Lee Jung were sitting at a table across from each other in the girl's room. The boy took out a case from his pocket and handed it to the girl, saying that it was a gift, and he thought it would suit the girl. The girl accepted the case, and when she opened it, she saw an incredibly beautiful comb. She thanked Lai Zhang but was kinda lost. The boy asked if maybe she didn't like his gift and she could be honest about it. The girl said that wasn't the case, and she liked the comb a lot. She said she would like to try it on right now, and Lee Jung volunteered to help her do that. He put the comb on the girl's hair and said that he had heard from someone that wearing such combs had a special meaning. Yao asked what the meaning was, but the boy said he couldn't remember exactly what it meant, but if she was interested, he would ask again, and when he came to see her later, he would tell her about it. At that moment, Yao remembered an episode from the future. In it, Lee Jung had also decorated her hair with a comb and said that, according to legends, after the wedding and the first wedding night, the couple braids each other's hair. So he's giving her this comb now to show her that he's the first to want to braid her hair. He asks if Yihua will marry him. This kind of memory made the girl very teary-eyed, and even a little teary-eyed. Lee Jung noticed this and asked what's wrong with the girl. Did she not like the comb after all? Ye Hawa replied that she was just very happy. She thanked the boy and said that she would love to wear his gift. These words made the boy's face seem to glow. In the evening, sitting in her room, Hao looked at the comb she had been given during the day. Shai Ho knocked on her door and said that it was time to take the medicine now. He placed the bowl in front of the lady, and she started to drink it, but felt something was wrong. She put the bowl back down and thought the medicine was sweeter. She didn't remember it being like this before. The girl asked Shai Ho what he added to it, because the flavor was much sweeter now. Shehu said he added licorice this time. The healer asked him to add something sweet so that the medicine would taste better and it would be easier for the little missus to drink it. He asked if Li Yihua wanted him to remove that ingredient, but the girl said she didn't need to do that. After finishing the medicine, she picked up the gifted comb again. Shai asked if it was a gift from Mr. Li Zhong. After the girl nodded briefly, he said that the little missus was very suitable for this piece of jewelry, and if she wore it the next time the young master came, he would be very pleased. Shaihu said that Mr. Li Zhong is very polite and caring, and he's glad that little mistress has such a friend. The girl was angry at those words for some reason. She said that Shaihu was greatly interested in Lai Zheng and asked him to spare her this useless curiosity and chatter. Shiho lowered his gaze, and there was nothing left for him to do but obey his mistress's order, but the girl said he was right. Li Zheng really is her good friend who she really likes. So Shai Ho should take care of him as well as taking care of the girl herself. Shai Ho himself said that he would do anything if you had believed him. Then her request would be for Fox to protect Li Zheng as well. Shihu had nothing to do but agree to it. The girl thought that Fox was very even-tempered, but she didn't like it. She wondered why she was so angry with him. She had found his weakness, and now things would be the way she wanted them to be. But why does it make her so angry? And she can't find a place for herself. The girl got the feeling that she was doing something she shouldn't be doing. She asked Sho how much longer his brother is going to go to her room. She said he walks around the manor, not even hiding his tail and ears. It will be bad if someone sees this, because then a big fuss will be raised. Or Shaihu thinks that since Little Mistress knows their true identity, they don't need to hide and deceive anymore. Shaiho said that Seo Ho has been walking around the house for a long time with the permission of Yehui herself. She forbade the servants from coming here precisely so that they could play with Seo Ho more often. And now he was so used to it that it was probably already a bad habit for him. This infuriated the girl even more. She started yelling at Shaiho and accusing him of mentioning the fact that she had lost her memory very often. How would she know that Liz wasn't lying? She said that Shiho dare not manipulate her by using her memory loss. Shiho immediately fell to his knees and said that's not true at all. He promised that he would restrain El Ho in order for Madame not to anger them. Waiho told Shiho to leave because the sight of them made her insides feel like they were boiling. She told the guy to get out and stay out of her sight. The next day, Seo Ho burst into Yehua's room and asking if the girl has eaten, offers her a walk. The girl decided not to refuse the little fox and went outside with him. Seo Ho picks her a beautiful bouquet of flowers and tells her that it's a gift especially for her because the flowers suit her so well. Surprised. Yehua asks if Seo Ho hasn't heard from his brother. The little fox got a little sad and said that he heard the girl tell them not to come closer, but he didn't pay much attention to those words because Yehua had forgotten them because of her illness. He said he knew that when she remembered everything, she would be sad about it. So they would stay close so she wouldn't be so sad and lonely. Yehua asks why Seo Ho is so sure of that, and what he will do if the memories never come back to the girl. Seo Ho said that his brother had taught him that as long as they remembered everything, the past wouldn't disappear, but since Yi Ha didn't remember anything, they should try to create new happy memories from now on. He said that he and his brother will cherish the memories of the past, and the girl needs to focus on getting better quickly and living happily. He said that he would like Little Miss to have many good memories. Yehua understood of everything now. She understood why she got so angry every time she looked at the Fox brothers, and why she got furious when she was about to chase them away. She was pissed off by these genuine feelings the foxes were showing. She doesn't know what happened to them in the future or what she herself experienced, but she still continued to suspect them and chase them away. Because things weren't completely clear, she was angry, but she wasn't angry at the foxes at all, but at herself. Suddenly, Solho heard something. He said that Yehua's nanny was coming here and said that they should go back. The fox was in the house in a couple of jumps, and Yehua lost her shoes while climbing in. At that moment, she was thinking why in her house she had to climb in through the window. Suddenly, she saw Shai, who carrying a huge amount of firewood behind his back, and her nanny walking beside him. The woman said that Shiho had chopped so much firewood in such a short time, and she didn't understand how such a skinny body could have so much strength, since the firewood weighed twice as much as him. Watching this, Hawa asked if it's only her father and nanny who come into the house. Soho said that Yehua had forbidden the others to come in, saying she didn't like the fuss. Because Solhu can't turn into a human yet, she was afraid that someone might see him. The girl was surprised and thought, since no one else comes in here, then who is watching the house? They heard the nanny's voice again, saying that so many people are asking for Shihu's help, because everyone knows how good he is at his job. However, even here, one should know the measure, because he still has to watch over the little mistress's house. The woman told Shiho to hurry up and take care of the firewood, as he still needed to heat water for Madame's bath, and to get ready, as it would soon be time to take the medicine. She asked if Shihu had remembered to prepare it. The young man said that he had not forgotten. Then the nanny said with a satisfied smile that he had done well and patted him on the shoulder. She said that it was because of Madame that he and COO were able to stay in this house and not starve. Nowhere else would accept those whose origins were unknown so easily. She said that even if Shiho was having a hard time, he should remember that he was only doing all this to repay Madame for her kindness, and he should always work with gratitude. The woman handed him some kind of bundle and said she had prepared jumakpab, a round-shaped lump of rice to which different ingredients can be added, and told him to eat. Shehu thanked the woman for this and began to sort out the firewood as soon as the nanny left. Suddenly, he noticed Yuhawa's shoes on the ground. He walked over to pick them up and wondered why the little mistress had left them here. He turned his head and saw Yue along with Seol Ho, who had been watching him the whole time. He was displeased that Seol Ho had once again disobeyed his instructions and came to the little mistress. He called his brother over to him, and as soon as he approached, he took him in his arms. He apologized to Ye Hui, and after bowing, he took Seol Ho away. The little fox apologized to his brother, but the little fox said he wasn't angry, just worried that he and Madame were uncomfortable together. Ye Hui, who was watching this, thought that she was really ashamed right now. Not only did she make Shehu a slave by helping him, but she also made him swear allegiance, forgetting her weakness. She and Seol Ho tolerate her hatred without even knowing the reason, and yet she knows the injustice and resentment like no one else. But she's doing the exact same thing now. She realized that she was now acting like the one she hates the most. She told herself she would never be like that, and regretted her actions. The girl was determined to make things right. Shaiha was reading a book to his brother and saw the dried flower he was using as a bookmark. He thought to himself that the mistress liked him very much. When they lost their family, they had nowhere to go and only she could take them in, even if 100 or 1,000 years passed while he was alive. Shaiha wouldn't forget it. He will live to repay the mistress for her kindness. Yehawa told the nanny that she had eaten too much food and would like to take her medicine and rest. The woman replied that as soon as she cleared the table, she would bring the medicine to her. But the girl said she didn't need to be so tense. After the dishes were cleared away, she could go rest herself, and Shiho could bring the medicine. The nanny told the girl that she had forbidden Shiho to get in her sight. If he did and brought the medicine, she would definitely not take it. Yehoy replied that it was fine, and asked the nanny to call Shiho. The woman obeyed and did as Madame ordered. Shiho was served the medicine, and anxiously asked Madame if there was anything else she wanted to ask him since she was calling for him. Yehoy asked the guy to move closer, and he only moved a centimeter. Then she asked him to move even closer, but he barely moved again. Unable to stand it, the girl went into a small scream and demanded that the young man be at arm's length. The bewildered young fox sat down to the table, and then the girl handed him a gift in his hands. Shai-Ho asked what was in the white box, but the lady said that he would only know when he opened it himself. Confused, the servant opened the lid and found inside a rectangular bookmark with dried flowers glued on and a tassel pendant with a string of beads. He was surprised at the bookmark. The girl, deliberately coughing to avoid embarrassment, said that since he was studying books on house management at his leisure, it would be useful for him to have a bookmark so that he wouldn't have to leaf through the page where he stopped reading each time. There were several emotions mixed on the boy's face. It was obvious that he was very nervous and yet very grateful for the gift from his mistress. The girl said that it was a small thing, but she saw his efforts at reading and decided to make him such a trinket. The boy examined the flower with his fingertips and told Yehewa that the bookmark was very beautiful and he would cherish it. After that, the girl sighed and said that she was sorry for what she had done, that she had been in the middle of a nightmare dream and had taken out all her anger on him. She said that the dream was hell and she couldn't keep silent because she was afraid that it might come true. But because of her emotions and fears, she had jeopardized the truth about him and his brother, which she regretted. The young man asked the lady to stop and assured her that he understood everything. But the girl replied that the fact that he understood did not mean that she had not heard him. She then said that he should not tolerate such words against him, and yet be ever grateful to her for the past. Since that was the past, and he could express his desires to her and fight back, the boy smiled gratefully and said that he would heed this request from now on. The girl began to drink the medicine, and after a sip of the infusion, asked if the lad needed anything else. The young man replied that he didn't need any items, and such a gift was quite enough. Yehalan offered to buy the lad new clothes, shoes, or jewelry, and hearing the refusals, said that when he left this house with his brother, it would be best for them to have at least some gold with them. At these words, Shai-Ho grew sad, and the girl realized that perhaps He thought that she probably already now wanted to drive him out of the house. After this thought, she said aloud that she meant the distant future, and told the fox to take her to the market next time, and she would buy him something inexpensive to her taste. Shaisu was glad of this arrangement, and willingly agreed to the trip. Shaiho carried Solho on his back, his ears hidden under a scarf and his tail under his cloak. As they walked through the marketplace, the young man told the lady that if she got tired, he could take her in his arms. The girl told Shiho that he was already carrying Seoho, and she felt fine so she could walk on her own. But then she realized that apparently he must have suggested it to her, since this kind of thing had happened a lot in the past, which she didn't remember. The guy put his brother down and started talking to one of the merchants, trying to negotiate something. Meanwhile, Saul, who was looking at the food stalls and drooling at the smells of the various foods. Yahweh noticed the boy's interest and offered to buy some mandu. They walked away from the boy and bought some dumplings, then diverted their attention to a few more stalls and came to a store selling calligraphy brushes. Yahweh remembered that Shil not only read books on household management, but also wrote a lot, so it would be a useful gift for him. However, she couldn't find a suitable brush, so she decided to go back with Il Sioho to the elder and ask him to choose a brush for her. But as soon as they turned around, they realized they couldn't find Shao in the crowd. They walked in circles, and everywhere they went, they ran into suspicious men. At this moment, Yahweh remembered how dangerous it was for children to walk around without adults, as they could easily be caught and sold as slaves, which often happened to children. The panic in the girl's heart grew, and Solhu said that brother was unlikely to find them, as their scents mixed with the crowd. After that, they moved aside and sat down against the wall of one of the buildings. The girls tried to calm their anxiety and asked the boy if he could smell his brother himself, but he replied in the negative. At that moment, they heard a man's voice behind them, saying that he smelled a sweet scent very close by. The black-haired man, realizing that the sweet scent was coming from Yi Hua, was about to grab her with his hand, but suddenly, Sol, who clung to his hand with his teeth. While the man was trying to pull the fox cub off of him, he had already climbed up and began to cover his enemy's eyes. Seohu shouted to the girl to run, but she couldn't move and didn't want to leave her friend in distress. The man threw the boy to the ground, and Yeha picked him up in her arms, falling with him. She wrapped her arms around him and covered him with her body as the man pulled his arms towards her. At that moment, Shiho rushed over to them, hitting the man with his baton in a leap. He then dealt him another blow with a head grab with his legs and eventually knocked out the children's attacker. While the black-haired man lay unconscious, the young man ran to the children to see if they were unharmed. Seoho was crying, and Yeo's eyelids began to droop. The young fox was afraid that the girl had a heart condition, or that her sickness had gotten worse again without medicine far from home. But she only said that she was just tired and was calm now that he was around. She just wanted to close her eyes for a while and sleep. The girl began to wake up to the heavy smell of incense. The white fox was taking her body again while she was unconscious, and the flash of thrill woke the girl up. But because of the slumber and the incense, the girl didn't fully wake up. The whole night was like a blur, and after the fox left the girl in bed, she fell asleep again. Putting on a robe, the young man came out of his chambers and called the older maid to clean up the room. The older woman moistened a handkerchief and began to wipe the girl's sweating body. While she was doing this, she decided to ask about the morale of her master. The fox replied that he felt like he was serving a prison sentence, and then added that he disliked the smell of the incense. The woman said that even if that scent didn't help the mistress come to her senses, she didn't know what else could be done, as she had tried to take her own life too many times. The maid then asked the man to wait a little longer. They needed to put the mistress' body to sleep and heal her from her wounds, and there was likely little time left before she awoke. In her slumber, the girl heard their voices and did not understand what they were talking about. And she also heard the clinking of the lid in the vase in which the incense was being changed. After that, she fell into a deep sleep and went back in time again. She was sitting behind Shai Ho's back, and little Seo Ha was tied by his belt in his brother's arm and was walking. They were walking at sunset. Yeoa thought back to recent events and realized that she had fainted during the attack, and afterwards had a dream that she didn't remember. The weakened girl noticed the fox cub crying hard. She said He was as much of a crybaby as his brother, and then both noticed her waking up. She told Shai-ho that if he wasn't a bad fox, he should never hurt her. The young man replied that he would never dare to do so, and then the young mistress fell back into slumber. Little Eseo looked at his friend and thought that if it had not been for his weakness, she would not have been hurt. He stopped crying and swore to himself that he would become as strong and brave as his older brother and would definitely protect Yaiwei in the future. Meanwhile, the white fox looked at his sleeping concubine. With a sense of longing, he took her hand to put her under the blanket and noticed that there was a scar on her palm. However, he didn't remember that she had such a mark before. How long ago had it been there? The girl woke up in her bed. Her illness had increased, and with it a fever and feverishness. There was a cool wet compress on her forehead, but it did nothing to relieve the heat and redness of her face. The father held his daughter's hand and said pitifully that he regretted having let her go out, and it was because of this that her health had deteriorated. The girl said that she would be fine soon, and that going to the market was not the reason. After asking her father once again not to worry about her, she turned to Shiho, who was sitting behind her, and asked him to go and rest since he had never left her side this whole time. He definitely felt guilty for leaving Madame alone in a crowded place and putting her in danger, so he resisted the request to rest. Yewa told him to come at night, when she had calmed down a bit and the fever had passed, and asked him to get some sleep. She realized that his regrets, awkwardness, and other feelings were not an act, and he was really a timid fox grateful to her for the shelter of her home. After this thought, she considered that what would affect his change in character and lead to the murder of his father had not yet occurred. She could prevent these actions, but for now she must treat Sheho well. She had to find out the reasons for the attack on her father and change the future. A few days passed, and Yewa was already starting to feel better and could sit at the table. As she was drinking her medicine, Shehu announced that Mr. Lee Jung had come to visit them and asked the girl if she would escort him to her room. The young mistress gave her consent and asked the nanny where the hairpin given by the boy last time lay. As soon as the girl put on the hairpin, Lee Jung ran into her room, asking on the fly how she was feeling, as he had heard that she had gotten into an altercation with an outlaw. The girl replied that she was fine, and the boy calmed down. Shihu put tea and sweets on their table and then left. Lee Jung asked her friend if everything was okay with this servant, since he took care of her all the time. Then the girl remembered that the last time they met, she had assured her friend that Shihu was a fox, and she replied aloud that she was just talking nonsense because of her painful nightmares, and her suspicions were false. Lee Jung then calmed down about that, and a blush shone on his cheeks as he noticed that the girl was wearing his gift in her hair. Yehawa awkwardly asked her friend to buy a writing brush since she didn't have time to buy one at the market last time. And now, due to her illness, she wouldn't be allowed outside for a long time yet. The young gentleman answered her friend that he would help her and buy a good brush, but the task was not easy, and on his next trip to the market, he really realized that it was difficult to choose a gift. Then the vendor asked Li Zhang what exactly he wanted. The boy thought that Yehua had asked him for a brush for herself, and so he asked for an item that would suit a young girl. The merchant then suggested a delicate brush created from laurel leaves, which gave off a faint fragrance when used. Such a brush was a good romantic gift. The boy agreed and asked to wrap his purchase. While the seller was putting the goods in the box, the young gentleman heard a conversation between men sitting nearby. They were discussing that recently some beast had appeared in the forests and was attacking other animals. Many animals had already died because of it, so all the farmers were told to keep a closer eye on their livestock so that this predator wouldn't get to them as well. After that, Li Jung immediately ran to visit Yehua. She greeted the boy and opened the box. The brush was very beautiful, and she said that it was exactly what she needed. She then told her friend that the babysitter would give him back the money he spent. However, Li Jung replied that he wouldn't accept any money, and seeing her smile was enough as payment, and then added that he wanted her to use the gift with pleasure. Then he remembered the rumors he had heard, and told the girl about them. Yehua replied that he had not supposed that on her errand he would hear such terrible news, and apologized. And Shai-ho, who was sweeping the yard hearing this dialogue, was horrified, though he did not show it by turning away from his mistress. The next night he attacked a wild boar in the forest to replenish his meat supply. After the hunt, Shaihu took a dip in a pool of water in the forest to wash off the blood and changed into clean clothes. Under the moonlight, he was wiping his hair with a towel when suddenly he felt trouble. A swarthy girl with black hair was walking down the path, wearing a cloak that covered her head with a hood. Following her were several predators, namely wolves and tigers, but the girl herself was walking at a leisurely, calm pace. The young man thought that the stranger was in trouble, and when the predators jumped up behind her back, he chopped both beasts with his knife. The two bodies now lay on the ground, and Shihu began to ask the girl if she was okay, and if she had any wounds on her. The brunette pulled off her hood, and pointing her finger accusingly at the young man's chest, began to yell at him. Who was he, and why was he interfering with her hunt? Shaihu then noticed that this stranger had red eyes that said that she was definitely not human. Because of her black curly hair and swarthy skin, he assumed that she was from the Black Fox clan. He replied that he thought she was in danger, so he decided to help her. The girl then replied that these beasts were her prey. She suggested that the guy might have been sent by her father, and asked if he worked for her dad. Then the guy asked who her father was, and the girl was very much surprised at the question. She asked if because he lived on the outskirts, did the rumors totally not reach him. Shiho then said that he had always lived alone, and didn't know what was in the fox world. Then the brunette decided to introduce herself with her name and title, but after hesitated and said that it was unimportant, and happiness was in ignorance. After that, she told the guy to stay away from her prey, and ran away at super speed into the depths of the forest, so that she was gone in a second. Shaiho thought about this moonlit encounter during the afternoon while he was cleaning the courtyard of Yewei's house. Just recently, the young mistress had been attacked by a black fox in the market, and now this girl had appeared in the neighborhood, and it was not all good. It was possible that those rumors young Master Li Jung had heard about were just about black foxes that had come down to the outskirts of the villages from their territory. In that case, he needed to be even more careful when hunting and better protect Yahweh. While he was thinking about this, he didn't even notice the girl watching him the whole time. Evening came and Shihu returned to his hut where his younger brother was waiting for him. Together they were learning to write. Little Soul, who was able to write as many as 5 syllables, and asked for a break. His older brother praised him for his work and asked him to write 2 more syllables so that they could finish the lesson. At that moment, Yewei knocked on their door. The little fox happily opened the door to greet her friend. She said that she came in briefly to deliver a gift. Before she could say that she wanted to give it to Shiho, Solho noticed that she had noticed that he was learning to write, so she wanted to give him a brush. The girl stood there confused, and Solhu assured her that he would study even harder after the gift. Shihu thanked Madam for the gift, for it was an added incentive for his little brother to study. Yahua didn't say who the gift was for, but thought to herself that Shihu was a fool for not realizing that the brush was supposed to be his. Then she thought that not long ago, he had been so genuinely pleased with the dried flower bookmark, and he had not even realized that she had done it deliberately so that he would forget her accusations and forgive her, so that she could continue to act secretly in her own interests. Leaving these thoughts, the girl said that she was about to leave for her room. Then the young fox volunteered to escort her to her chambers. As they walked towards her cabin, Shihu thought, why did Madam's mood worsen and she became sad? At this moment, the girl turned around to him and asked him, did she and her brother always roam the streets alone? They had no parents or any other ties. She then hastened to correct herself and asked if she didn't know this information before she lost her memory. At first startled, but then in a blink of an eye, a reassured Shiho told Madam that she had not been interested in this before, and had always told him that origin and the past were not important, and only the present was important. Then the girl thought that in this way he was trying to sneak out of the answer, and asked that if she wanted to know, could he tell her now? After this request, a terrible picture unfolded before Shiho's eyes. His father had put Sao-ho, who was still just a baby, in his arms and hid him in a safe place for them to escape together, and lastly asked him to take care of his younger brother. When the doors closed behind Shiho, he continued to stand still, and through the gap, he saw that the shadow of a tall man, a black fox, was standing over his father's silhouette. He slapped Shiho's father across the face, and told him that it was all his own fault, and he was no longer entitled to the throne. He then grabbed his head with both hands to kill him. The young man's chest ached and he cried out in mortification, falling to his knees. Yahao was startled by this reaction to his request, and the young man replied briefly and quickly that his parents had died in the incident. They had been attacked, and then his father had hidden him in a shelter from where he had escaped with his younger brother. He wanted to give the reason for the attack, but then the girl said he didn't need to say that and hugged the boy tightly around his neck. They both cried, and Yahao asked the fox not to take her words as orders. And if it was hard for him to talk about something, or he didn't want to, he could always say no. When the young mistress left for her bedroom, the boy went back to his room. Asiel, who was already sound asleep with a smile on his face, and in his sleep, he was holding the box with a gift brush in his hands. The words of his father, who had asked him to take care of Asiel-ho, replayed in the lad's mind. He stroked the younger man's hair and went to the warehouse in the early morning to make breakfast and check their supplies. There wasn't much meat left in the sack, and the boy realized that Sol, who had started eating a lot more because of his growth, and now his supply wasn't enough for as many days as it used to be. He would have to go hunting more often now. When dusk came, he went to the forest where he was able to slaughter a black fox. While he was carving chunks of meat from it, he felt that he had failed to replenish the fox's energy, and now he was very weak for hunting, and he needed to rest properly before doing so. Suddenly, he felt that someone was attacking him from behind. Shihu put his bloody knife forward and repelled the attack of the dagger aimed at him. The attacker turned out to be the stranger he had met on the last hunt. She was equally surprised to meet again the one who had taken her prey last time. Noticing that he had almost no fox energy, and the fact that he was stacking chunks of meat from the killed fox instead of devouring it whole, she asked what he was doing and why he didn't know how to replenish his powers. The guy replied that it wasn't like she thought. To live among humans, he needed to suppress his energy and appetite. Then the brunette began to ask why the young man needed to live among humans. In her opinion, it was too hard and pointless, so she suggested that he come with her and join her clan. Shai-ho declined the invitation and said that he lived among humans for a number of reasons he couldn't tell. Then the girl said that since he hunted outside the village, the humans apparently didn't know he was a fox. She then began to tell him that when they found out about his identity, they would kill him, or at best expel him from their community. Since the current situation regarding humans and foxes was very scary because of what the previous Fox King had done. Shio knew that his father was the king, and became worried about what was this girl's knowledge. He lied that he had been on his own since birth, so he didn't know anything. Then the girl wondered where in the history of foxes she should begin, and said that there were 2 clans of foxes, black and white. As she told the story, she drew illustrations in hieroglyphics, with a stick on the ground. The previous king became the king of the 2 clans, but he fell in love with a human. Because of that, he turned a blind eye when humans, breaking the rules, invaded the foxes' territory and nearly destroyed their clans. The one who prevented him from doing so became the current king of both clans. After hearing this, Shai-ho asked, why was the previous king's wife to blame? He didn't see the connection. The brunette then asked the guy, didn't he know the essence of people? That woman was making the leader of the white foxes patronize humans. Otherwise, why would the foxes who had been highly resentful of humans all their lives suddenly change their minds? Hearing someone slandering his own mother for seducing and stupefying his father's mind, Shai-ho shouted that it wasn't like that and he wasn't willing to listen to it. At first, the brunette did not understand the expression on the young man's face, which reflected horror, and then looking at his appearance, she thought that he belonged to the White Fox clan, for whom this topic was a sore subject. The brunette said that this topic was a sore point for all the white foxes and suggested changing the subject. Shiho thought he had almost revealed his identity, so he asked if white foxes and black foxes used to fight with each other. The girl replied that it was like that, and she belonged to the black foxes, but did the 2 of them care? The guy replied that he didn't care. However, if she decided to reveal his identity in front of people, she would then become his enemy. The brunette looked into the guy's eyes for a moment, and then silently disappeared into the forest. Shiho only hummed at her departure, and was about to return to carving the fox carcass, when suddenly the corpse of a boar fell beside him. The girl came back and told the boy to replenish his strength, and then added that if he was having a hard time, he could join her clan because it was much better to live in a pack. Her house accepted white foxes as servants, but everyone lived well. After that, Shai-Hu went to the water body again to wash off the blood. He remembered the Black Fox's story about his mother and realized how distorted the truth was. In fact, his mother had been killed unjustly. The current Fox King, along with his clan, had created a conspiracy against his father and mother to take the throne. After all the thinking, he touched his face tiredly, began to walk out of the lake. Meanwhile, the brunette entered her bedroom through the window, happy that no one had caught her this time. However, the joy was not long, and in her room stood several maids, who complained that their mistress again disappeared somewhere during the night, and said that her father was waiting for her. Hearing this, the girl began to hurry the maids to get her clothes ready for her as soon as possible. She sat down on a chair, and the foxes began to do her hair and put on her dress. There were many white foxes among her servants, and looking at their hair, she thought again of the stranger in the forest. It was the first peer she had met, and she wished she could bring him into her home. Before she left, she told him that if things got hard for him after all, he could find her and she would help him. Then Shai-Hu asked the girl what her name was, and she said her name, Su-Ra. That was the name her father was now addressing her by while in the main hall of the palace. He was looking at his daughter sitting on his throne with a bored look, but the girl felt his gaze very heavy and piercing. Yahweh was strolling through the garden in the early morning when she saw Shai-Hu entering the grounds from the gate. She ran up to him and asked him where he was at such an early morning. The young man replied that he had been washing, and afterward asked the lady herself why she had not slept and put on the cloak he had left in her room, as it was chilly in the morning. The girl said she just woke up early and changed the subject, noticing how tired the fox was. She told him that he should get a good night's sleep, and he needn't leave so early to take a bath, as there was no one else in the house but her and the nanny, and he wouldn't be seen. Moreover, she understood that it was hard to maintain a human appearance, because Shai-Hu still didn't know how to hide his ears and tail and change his hair color, which meant it was very energy consuming, and told the boy that under her he could waste no energy and walk as he wanted. The young man was very grateful to the mistress, and sitting down on his knees, said thank you for her trouble. A blush appeared on the girl's cheeks, and embarrassed, she said that she had to visit the healer today, but she had asked Nanny to stay home, and wanted to go see him with Shai-Hu, and they could also take Shai-Hu along for the walk. After saying that, she abruptly turned around and said that they would see each other later, then ran to her room to hide her embarrassment. Yua sat inside the palanquin with Shai-Hu. The boy was again covered with his cloak and shawl tied around his head, and was looking through the window at the streets with curiosity. He thanked the girl for letting him stay with her and go to the healer, and then looked at Shai-Hu, who was accompanying the palanquin with the guards, and apologized for what had happened at the market. Yahweh didn't understand what was meant, and asked the boy what he apologized for. Shai-Hu then said that if he was stronger, he would have been able to protect her, and was very angry at himself for his weakness. The young mistress told him that it was all right, for he was still a child, and he was not required to protect and be strong. But the little fox said that nevertheless he would try to be as strong as his older brother, and in the future he would be sure to protect her from any threats. After a while they arrived at the place, and Yahweh went to be examined. The healer gave her an acupuncture treatment and did a few other procedures and examinations. Shai-Hu diligently wrote down in his notebook, which he carried on his belt twisted into a tube, what needed to be bought and done to maintain the mistress's health. Afterward, the girl returned to the palanquin where Shai-Hu had been waiting for her all this time. She was exhausted from the treatment, and very much tired. The boy covered her with a plaid and told her that she could go to sleep, and he would wake her up as they approached the house. Shai-Hu, accompanying the palanquin, wondered if this path they were walking on had always been so quiet. The sun had already set, and they were walking in darkness, and it seemed to the fox that danger was about to approach them. His premonition was correct, and the next moment they were attacked by a pack of black foxes. The werewolves killed all the guards in a second and overturned the palanquin. Shai-Hu realized that these foxes were many times stronger than what he had seen at the market, and they outnumbered him, so he could hardly stand against them for long, as he had little strength. Yahweh woke up, and together with Shai-Hu, she rolled over and sighed onto her side. The children were in a panic, and the girl screamed in fear. Shai-Hu covered them with his back and shouted to the foxes not to dare attack, but some still approached the palanquin and jumped on top. Then Shai-Hu took out a knife from his belt. stabbed it into the neck of one fox, and then slit the throat of the second fox. The rest of the pack became even more enraged and pounced on the young man. Soho told Yahawa to run away, but before they could get out, someone fell from above and stabbed the girl in the arm, causing the walls of the box to collapse. The leader of the horde lifted Yahawa by the collar of her dress and told her that she was the one who gave off such a sweet scent, so he intended to swallow her whole at once. Shiho was lying on the wreckage of the palanquin, with a deep claw wound on his chest. He shouted for the fox not to dare touch the lady, and Solhu sank his fangs into his enemy's leg. The man threw the boy off of him, and he flew forward, falling to the ground. The fox boy lifted himself off the ground and felt his weakness. Right now, there was no way he could save Yehua and his brother, and anger at himself and his own powerlessness took over the boy. He didn't want to be weak anymore. He clenched his fist tightly and began to concentrate his fox energy. The black foxes saw a pillar of light suddenly appear in the bushes among the trees. After that, a white nine-tailed fox was walking towards them, emitting radiance. The wounded Shiho saw his father in this image and thought it was him. But then he noticed that the energy was unstable, so it was Solho. Indeed, behind the image of the big fox was the same shimmering fox. Shiho remembered his father's edict to protect Solho at all cost, to not let anyone know about his power until he could control it himself. The nine-tailed fox, controlled by a small fox cub, moved closer to the enemies and then roared loudly. The energy from his roar was a large stream of air, and in the blink of an eye, it tore apart all the black foxes, turning the clearing into a bloody mess. After that, Solhu regained his usual appearance, and immediately collapsed without strength. Yehel was lying in her bed, once again overcome by fever. Her father sat by her bedside, regretting what had happened. He had specially placed a few guards to protect her after the incident at the market and the rumors of animal deaths in the neighborhood. But even that couldn't keep her safe. The servant tried to reassure his master by explaining that no one had survived the incident, so nothing could keep the young mistress out of danger, and she was only able to survive thanks to Shiho, who had brought her on his back but was covered in blood and looked like a walking corpse. Only the favor of fate was able to save the girl, and that was already a great happiness. The man replied that he had completely forgotten about Shio and asked his subordinate to take the medicine to the young boy. Then he asked the nanny and the other girls who were looking after Yechwal what was her condition. The woman replied that the girl's health was very fragile, and even a simple wound or cut could throw her off balance and cause a fever. And her wound on her arm was very deep, so they couldn't puzzle out whether the girl could make it or not. Meanwhile, in reality, Yeha was anxiously sleeping due to the stuffiness of the room and the incense on her face. Her face was sweating, and then the fox opened the windows to let in some air, which made the girl feel better instantly. He stroked her cheek, and then noticed that there was a new scar on her arm that was definitely not there before. When he touched the mark, memories of the past that hadn't been there suddenly appeared in his mind. It flashed before his eyes how Yehua had been attacked by wolves and destroyed the palanquin, while Shiho and Sioho had protected her. He was definitely sure that this event had not happened in the past, which meant something had changed. After that, he left the girl and left the room. After a while, Yeha woke up and then realized that she could fall asleep and go into the past when her life was on the line. And in the same way, she would wake back up when a threat to her life appeared in the past. She was very worried about what might happen afterwards to Shiho and Cielho, and realizing that she couldn't change anything in the present unlike the past, and rushed to somehow hurt herself or try to kill herself so that she would be on the verge of death. However, no sooner had she done so than suddenly, pain shot through her body and she screamed loudly. Fox and the maids rushed into the room and saw the girl squirming in pain on the bed. The young man saw that the bead inside her body had become violent and red energy was spreading from it. He motioned for the servants to leave the room and told them he would call them when he came out himself. He then bent over Yeha, and the latter was in tears, saying that her stomach hurt very badly, as if a fire was burning inside her. Fox kissed her and told her to ignore the pain and concentrate only on the sensations she was getting, and then held her tightly against him. After a long kiss, the girl felt that the pain in her stomach began to recede a little. Fox wanted to put the girl on the bed and lie on top of her, but then he remembered how last time she had told him in tears that if he touched her, she would bite her tongue and die. He got up and was about to leave, and then he Hao herself without knowing why, but took him by the edge of his clothes and asked him to stay and continue what he wanted. He told her that he didn't want her to try to kill herself again, and asked why she wanted to continue. The girl bashfully said she didn't need to ask her that, and there was no point in it, for she was his prisoner anyway, and there was no escaping it sooner or later. After that, the fox plopped the girl down on the bed and took her legs. She was very tense, and then he began to relax her body through the fabric of her robe. Coaxing her requests to be gentler annoyed him. Once the girl was relaxed and prepared, she willingly succumbed to the man's caresses and enjoyed the process with him in her arms. She called the fox by the name of Shiho. The man looked at her in surprise and removed their clothes. After a night spent together, the girl put her arms around the fox's shoulders and placing her palms on his face, she moved forward and kissed him on the lips. The pain in Yihoa's stomach subsided, and instead, she began to feel the warmth begin to spill over her body, and she wanted to feel more and more full inside. The fox turned her over and began to take her roughly, and soon after, 2 tears of relief slipped down the girl's face. She fell asleep, and the man covered her with a blanket, stroking the new scar. Thoughts of memories that hadn't been there before kept him awake. The girl began to shift back in time again, but still lay unconscious in a fever. The servants treated Shiho's wounds and bandaged his chest, but the young man's skin would not heal in any way, and he could not regain consciousness. One of the women went inside and asked the servants not to stay here for a long time, as the younger brother of the guy was very afraid of people and hid from them. Then all the people came out and began to discuss in the courtyard about the brothers' hard fate, their unknown origins, and how Mrs. Yiwei had taken them in. Little Seo Hao got out of the dresser. He usually slept in, just in case if people came in, he would already be hidden. He lay down beside his brother, hoping that he would wake up soon. When evening came, the boy realized that he had already eaten all the meat his brother had brought next time, but he was very hungry and his stomach was rumbling. He was already thinking about going out and finding food himself, but he realized that he was completely inept at hunting. If he could completely satisfy his hunger, he would then be able to share the fox's energy with his brother, and his wounds would heal faster. Suddenly, the boy smelled a strong sweet odor, the source of which was not far away. He followed the scent trail and found himself in Yi Hua's bedroom. She was sleeping soundly, with Nanny dozing beside her. The fox cub's eyes were glowing yellow in the darkness, and there was a beastly expression on her little face. The sweet scent intoxicated the little one, and he lost his mind, ready to pounce on his friend. At that moment, Shiho, who woke up and noticed his brother's absence just in time, caught him. Seol, who looked at his brother with a predatory look, but then gradually began to calm down and relax in the older man's arms. He asked Shiho if he couldn't feel that Yoa had such a delicious smell coming from him, and then he started to fall asleep. Shiho remembered Soho, telling him about the sweet scent coming from Ye Hua. The kid was under the influence of his fox energy that he couldn't suppress, while his older brother deliberately didn't replenish it to be as human-like as possible. However, in order to verify what the scent was about, he needed to replenish his energy. Early in the morning, he went into the forest and caught a deer. After apologizing to the animal, he absorbed its life energy, and burying the corpse, he walked towards the house. When he reached the mansion, he felt that this sweet scent was all over the houses of their residents, and it was coming from Yi Hua's house. He could not bear the odor, and in order not to give in to his primal instincts, he ran back into the forest, where he fell to his knees and cried hysterically. All the memories associated with Ye Hua began to flash before him. When he had first come to the village with little Soul, home in his arms, he had heard an old woman telling the children a shadow theater play in which she talked about foxes. Their bodies were never disposed of, their skins were used for fur coats, their claws and teeth for jewelry, but even the carcasses themselves were always used whole. It was said that foxes' blood could disperse vital energy, and their organs could cure diseases, so they could serve as a source for medicines. A real panacea. The story ended with the narrator telling the children that foxes were cunning, and could often lure people with their blood and flesh and then trap them in their traps. So it was best not to hunt foxes. Hearing this play for the first time, Xiahou looked at Eseol-ho, who was tied to him with a handkerchief, said that when their father was king, humans and foxes lived without paying attention to each other, but if it was now possible to live in such a way that their existence was an old legend, then they should try their best to hide their origin and identity. But it wasn't long before he met Yehua. The girl seemed incredibly wise to him, for she not only protected them, the accused thieves, but also took them into her home, even though they were enemies of humans. When Xiahou first started working in the house, and saw the girl squirming in pain, in moments of fever, he asked the nanny what the mistress was sick with. The woman told the boy that Madame Yehua had a very weak immune system and her internal organs did not function well. She could catch a cold and get seriously ill even from a light summer breeze. This was also how her late mother was, who also died due to her poor health. The young man wondered why Yethe was so wise and mature beyond her years, both at the time of their rescue and in general. He realized it when he saw her sad eyes change to an expression of complete understanding when she once again had to close the windows to keep the wind from blowing. She wasn't mature, she was just resigned to her fate. Xiahou sincerely didn't want the girl to live her entire life cooped up in a room and only be able to look at the same view from the window. He decided to go along with his selfishness to see as much as possible his mistress happy, joyful, and walking outside. He decided to believe the rumors that the blood of foxes was a penchant, and began adding a drop of his blood to each bowl of medicine. Life force did return to the girl, and she was no longer as weak as before. But by doing so, he condemned the girl to a life of suffering and danger. His blood, mixed with hers, formed a very strong sweet scent, which now attracted all the foxes who began to desire to devour her. Because of his own selfishness to help the girl, he had now made things even worse. Moreover, her health was now completely dependent on his blood, and she would require more and more of it in the future. But if he stopped giving it, then she would definitely die. He couldn't forgive himself for this, and continued to cry with no power to change anything. Xiahou stood outside Yahou's room, with a tray with food and medicine on it. The nanny came out to him, who was startled by his appearance. She told him that he had just recently been lying unconscious, so how could he be on his feet now? He needed to lie down, and she asked him to lie down another day to rest properly. But the young man, with an unhappy look, said that he could not lie still while his mistress was unwell. He had already been taken care of by everyone, and now he had the strength to help. Realizing that it was pointless to argue, the nanny said she would only rest for 2 hours, and after that she would come to change him. She let him, as she knew that no one treated the young mistress better than him. Yehua woke up to reality. She noticed that her body had been washed, dressed, and even the linens on the bed had been changed. She remembered what had happened the night before, and blamed herself for asking the fox to make love to her, even though he had literally held her captive and raped her before. At that moment, the head maid entered the room with a tray of food. She suddenly smelled the sweet aroma from the girl, and to control herself, she threw the tray and ran further down the hall. As she ran, she bumped into her master's shoulder. The white fox stopped the woman and asked her what was the matter. The woman explained that she almost lost her temper because of her mistress's scent. The man realized that all the servants would soon go mad in this way, and ordered that no one should be allowed into the part of the palace where Yehua lived, and that more soporific incense should be brought. The maid asked the lord if the lady would run away if no one was watching her, and was it certain that more incense was needed, for the man did not like the smell of it. The man replied that everything was fine, and thanks to the bead, it was unlikely that Yehua would be able to do anything else to escape. Meanwhile, the girl was strolling in a single robe, barefoot through the garden that was off to the side of her chambers. She didn't understand why that maid had run away or where the rest of the courtiers had gone. As she looked around for a single living soul, she accidentally stepped barefoot on a small pebble on a stone slab. She clutched her foot, which was bleeding, and wondered where the stone could have come from in such a well-kept garden, where the paths were always cleaned. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a fox ran up to her and grabbed her arm. He yelled at her for trying to get away from him again, and in such a way. The girl tried to calm him down, saying that she knew he wouldn't let her escape, and she was just trying to find someone since everyone seemed to be missing. He led her back to the bedroom and threw her on the bed, holding her legs. Yawa was frightened and began to tearfully beg him to stop doing anything, as she didn't want intimacy right now. But she herself misunderstood the fox, as he just started to treat the wound on her leg. She didn't understand why he was providing medical care in such a simple way, and didn't resort to the fox's power. Then the man himself said that he would no longer forcibly touch her. As from now on, she would ask him for intimacy on her own, and touched her stomach with his index finger. Would then realize that the pain in her stomach was some kind of magic, and he did it on purpose so that she herself would beg him to relieve her of this pain. He loomed over her from above, and told her that her body was now completely hers. The girl felt humiliated, for not only had he robbed her of her family and future, now he was trying to permanently dishonor her body. It wasn't enough, and he wanted more, to break her will. She said she wouldn't have him, and looking into his eyes with a serious look, she bit her tongue. She covered her mouth to let the blood flow into her pride. Blood flowed from her eyes, and eventually she choked, passing out. As she fainted, Yehawa thought that she would finally never see that fox's face again. She woke up again in her bed as a little girl. Standing next to her was a worried Shid, who asked her how she was feeling. With tears of resentment, the girl threw back his hands and didn't say a word to him. The young man realized that apparently Madame must have had a bad dream about him again, and did not bother her any further. The next day, immersed in his thoughts, he spent a long time sweeping the garden, standing in one place. Ye Hua, sitting on the veranda, told him not to stand still, and he finally looked at her. The boy had been standing with his back to her all morning, and never once looked in her direction. The girl realized that she shouldn't have taken out on him the wrongs she had received in the present, and tried to win back his affection, which had broken again during the night. Xiahou turned around, and then Yehawa tearfully started yelling at him to stop pleasing her, to be himself, and to openly tell her his grievances, and not to tolerate her attitude, which was only spoiled by silly dreams. When she had calmed down, the young man asked the mistress how old she was in those dreams. Then the girl told him to bring to the ledge of the veranda the 2 boxes that stood in the garden. When he did so, she stood on top and said that she was exactly the height she had been in her dreams. She was about a shoulder height, and Xiahou was embarrassed to imagine her as an older and prettier girl. Yehua, looking at Shihu's face full of love for her, began to cry in pain. She didn't understand why he did such atrocities to her in the future if he treated her well now. The boy was frightened by Mistress's tears, and she asked him to come closer.